Welcome to another book review of the books of Orlando Figes. Today we're going to talk about The Whisperers and the People's Tragedy by Orlando Figes. I'm not going to get too much to the author this time. I have my other review regarding the author. He's an extraordinary author, very precise in his history. In today's review, we are reviewing The People's Tragedy, which is the Russian Civil War, how it started, how it changed, how it impacted personally the human lives of individuals. The author Orlando Figes truly dives into the personal lives of the individuals as well as the political situation of the period and how it led to the war. And then we have The Whisperers, which is the story under the Stalinist regime, which is partially a continuation of his book on the people's tragedy, but focuses more on the individual and how the regime really affected the individual people within Russia. Here I have some quotes out of the books. So in regards to the first book, in a society where everyone is obliged to break the law, the social contract between the state and the individual becomes an elaborate game. People are compelled to take on a double identity, to play a role, to say one thing and think another. This is in regards to The Whisperers, where the whole regime made the average individual paranoid. And for all Soviet apologists, I will truly recommend this book, The Whisperers, for them to truly perceive the brutality of the regimes. For people interested in Russian history, it's a must-read book. You have to really understand the individual life of those people. So not only focus on the general aspect of the regime and the policies of the government, but also focus on the people themselves, because that's what makes history, people and how they felt, how they reacted, how the regime shaped and affected the everyday life of people. And you will find the book quite brutal in some sense, and ironically enough, that's the reality of the situation of that regime. And Orlando Figes does quite a brilliant job in narrating that narrative. And the other two quotes are from The People's Tragedy. It was easy to make a revolution, but much harder to carry out the policies of a radical party in power. Orlando Figes does quite a brilliant job by not putting his own political beliefs in the book, I believe, and tries to focus on the history and actually what happened, which is quite admirable, and especially when it comes to totalitarian regimes and writing history of totalitarian regimes. Some to argue that he's a Lenin apologist. I will disagree on that manner. What he does is he writes quite good history, and that's what you should do. It's up to the individual, after reading quite a lot of books, to make up his own mind whether Lenin, Stalin, Brezhnev, and so forth were brutal leaders, as personally I have made my mind on. But it's not up to the author, especially authors that aim to show you and teach you history, to tell you their own opinions. And Orlando Figes does that brilliantly. So that criticism against him is wrongly put, in my opinion. Another quote: but the more the economy declined, the more the repressive the Bolshevik regime became. Its monopoly of power was defended by a system of a state of terror. That comes to show you as well as the everyday life of the individuals in the Civil War. Again, this book is also brutal, but also focuses on the political aspects and how it came to be. Some very small minor criticism of the book. My personal specialization when it comes to Russian history is specifically the Russian way of war. I do read quite a lot of Russian history in general, but specifically Russian war. And Orlando Figes doesn't really go into that. So I was a bit disappointed on that aspect because the book, The People's Tragedies, really covers every single aspect of the Russian Civil War, but kind of ignores the actual war part of it. It's not like he doesn't mention the war. He just doesn't go into the war. I understand that each historian specializes in different things, and he might have found it not as important. And I'm not judging him in any way. For the average reader of Russian history, this is a brilliant work. Now, the book The Whisperers, it's quite a good book for Russian historians. It's a great book. For the average reader, I will argue it's quite hard to follow. That's not the same for the other book, about the Civil War, but that's why I'm giving it a general 7 out of 10 when it comes to narrative, because it jumps a bit around when it comes to the book The Whisperers, and it kind of loses the reader sometimes. In the book, The People's Tragedy, it's better in keeping the narrative, much, much better. But again, I believe you should know a bit of Russian geography and general Russian history of the period to general European history of the period to truly understand the book. The depth and the accuracy of the book, 9 out of 10. I would have given it a flat 10 if it had a bit of more military analysis in it. But outside of that, 9 out of 10, perfect. The same goes for the quality of the work in my own personal view. As I mentioned prior, I do consider Orlando Figes a great author. The narration was not as great, again, quite good, but not as great as the other narrator. Don't remember if it was the same or not, but I remember it was a bit harder to follow and some confusion of words and so forth. Overall, an 8.3, quite an excellent books to read. Highly recommend them in regards to Russian history. And I'm repeating myself again, but if you want to learn more about Russia, read Orlando Figes. And please, Orlando Figes, to write a massive book about general Russian history, a very detailed Russian history, and especially the Romanovs period up to today's, if it's possible, and in an audiobook version. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and go buy his books. Thank you.